Hi folks, today's video is tough. You see, a 17-year-old boy, Austin Metcalf, was stabbed in the heart and died in his twin brother's arms at a high school track meet. There's no making sense of a tragedy like that, but in moments like this, we have to stop and ask, what kind of culture are we building? We're told by the media and the left that everything's fine, that white people are the problem with America, and that crime is just a symptom of systemic oppression. But when a white teen with a 4.0 GPA, a bright future, and a strong faith is murdered in cold blood, the coverage is minimal, the outrage non-existent, and the narrative suddenly vanishes. Why is that? Well, because it doesn't fit the script. You see, in today's America, law and order are optional. Morality is subjective, and victims only matter when they check the right boxes. A kid brought a knife to school and murdered another kid over a seat. That's not justice, that's decay. And it's happening while the people in charge either look away or make excuses. In today's video, we're digging into what really happened in Texas and what it says about where we are as a nation and where we need to go. Let's get into it.
His brother was holding on to him, trying to make it stop bleeding, and he died in his brother's arms.
Austin Metcalf's final moments, his dad says, were spent in his twin brother's arms.
I rushed up there, and I saw him on the gurney, and I could tell.
The 17-year-old died Wednesday, police say, after being stabbed by another student at a high school track meet in Frisco, Texas.
Not conscious, not breathing, he was stabbed.
His twin brother, who was there, told their dad the incident began when the pair asked the student to move to a different seat.
He brought a knife to a track meet, and he murdered my son by stabbing him in the heart.
Police are not saying what caused the altercation, but have arrested 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony, a student athlete from a rival school, now charged with murder. Anthony has not yet pled. The North Texas community in shock.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Grieving alongside Austin's family, who are remembering the high school junior as a bright student athlete who was MVP of his football team and had a 4.0 GPA.
He was loved by many. He was a leader. He believed in God. He was a great kid. Made me the proudest father in the world.
Tonight, his family leaning on that faith to forgive.
I already forgive this person. God takes care of things. God's going to take care of me. God's going to take care of my family.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News.
This is heartbreaking. A kid stabbed in the heart in front of his twin brother. Not in some alley or crime-ridden neighborhood, but at a high school track meet. A place meant for competition and community turned into a crime scene. And why? Because he asked someone to move seats. That's where we are now, folks. A culture where a simple request can get you killed. And Austin wasn't a troublemaker. He was a 4.0 student, MVP of his football team, a leader grounded in faith and family, but because he was white, the media barely touches his story. If the races were reversed, we all know this would be wall-to-wall coverage, politicians would be holding press conferences, but when the victim doesn't check the right boxes, the story gets buried. No outrage, no national conversation, just silence. That's why it's important that we have this conversation, because otherwise, it doesn't happen. And let's be clear. This wasn't a mutual altercation that spiraled out of control. The suspect brought a knife to a school event. That's not a spur-of-the-moment decision. That's intent. That's someone showing up ready to do harm. And yet, the press soft pedals it. They won't touch the racial or the cultural angle, but we will. And yet, even amid this tragedy, there's a glimmer of hope. Austin's father, a man who just lost his son in the most horrific, public, senseless way possible, and still has the strength to speak about forgiveness. That kind of grace doesn't come from weakness. It comes from deep, unshakable faith, from a place of character most people can't begin to understand. In a world obsessed with vengeance and blame, this man chose peace. That's something we should all reflect on. All that being said, faith doesn't absolve society of responsibility. We owe this family more than thoughts and prayers. We owe them honesty, we owe them justice, and we owe them a culture that values life enough to stop tolerating this kind of violence under the guise of compassion or equity.
Well, he told us a lot, Nicole and Doug, about his grief that is still very much raw and very much recent that he's dealing with as he recovers from this terrible tragedy. Frisco ISD, meanwhile, tells us they had 5 certified athletic trainers at the stadium who all responded to what happened. The victim's family also telling us the day after that they have questions about whether more could have been done to prevent what happened. The photos of Austin that hang in his home are now all Jeff Metcalf has to remind him of one of his twin sons. But he tells me he found some comfort today from a dream.
He came to me and said, it's okay.
Does that give you comfort?
God gives me comfort. If it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't be here.
Metcalf spoke to us while still in shock over what happened just a mile away at this stadium, where Austin's twin brother Hunter saw him stabbed in the chest.
My other son, who was there, was holding his hands on the hole, trying to save his life. He told me, Dad, I looked at him in his eyes. He was gone. He wasn't breathing.
Hundreds filled a Frisco church last night remembering Austin, who was a standout on the Memorial High School football team. Karmelo Anthony has been arrested and charged with murder, also a standout student athlete at Centennial High School. The victim's father grieves while starting to question whether the school district did enough to protect his son.
If there is a precedent or some precursor that maybe this could have been prevented, I don't know. I am concerned with the lack of security. How does someone bring a knife to a track meet?
Police have not said what led to the stabbing, but Austin's father says it started when his sons and members of the Memorial High School track team questioned Anthony about why he was standing near them instead of his own school's team.
Each high school has their own section to sit in. They went to sit under the memorial tent. They heard this individual behind them speaking, and they turned around and said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Mello." And he had a Centennial track suit on. And they said, "You're in the wrong spot. You need to go sit with your team." And then it escalated.
Now, we are told at last check that Anthony remained in the Frisco City Jail with a bond of $1 million, facing a first-degree murder charge.
Now, there's a lot to unpack here. 5 certified athletic trainers were on site. 5. And yet, a student was stabbed in the chest and died before anything could be done. This wasn't some freak accident. This was a violent attack that appears to have been absolutely preventable. So where were the adults as the situation escalated? Did anyone intervene? What exactly were these certified professionals doing before the knife came out? How does someone bring a knife into a school track meet? Where was the security? Where were the bag checks? The questions Austin's father is asking are the same ones any reasonable parent would ask. This is Texas, after all, a major school event with hundreds in attendance, and yet somehow a kid shows up armed and seemingly ready to kill, and nobody is ready to stop it? Now, this report gave us a bit more information about how it all started. Austin and his teammates asked Anthony to sit with his own school's team, nothing more than a reasonable, respectful request, and for that, Austin was stabbed in the chest. That's not a misunderstanding. That's unprovoked rage. And it looks like Anthony came ready for conflict, deliberately sat in the wrong section, and had a weapon ready the moment someone challenged him. The school district needs to answer for how that was allowed to happen on their watch. Now, we're also being told about how Anthony was a standout student athlete. And that's exactly where the media spin begins. Instead of focusing on the crime, we're asked to consider the alleged murderer's potential, his athletic record, his grades, as if any of that softens what he did. Let's be clear. There's no room for sympathy over someone's future when we're talking about someone who brought a knife to a school event and stabbed another student in the chest. His so-called promise is irrelevant here. He didn't just ruin his future, he ended someone's life. A family is mourning their son, and the last thing the public needs is a carefully crafted redemption narrative for the person who took him away. At the end of the day, this is about a culture that's lost its moral compass, a culture where violence is explained away, security is neglected, and faith is ridiculed. We need to do better.
How did it happen?
So it was a really bad storm in the morning, and they had a lot of delays. And me, my brother, a couple kids were walking back from the field house of the middle school because we attended that middle school when we went to middle school, and we were saying hello to old coaches and catching up with them. And then we're walking back to our stand. We put our tent up so all the bleachers were right there, were not wet from all the rain. We come back, we sit down, and this kid said something behind me. I've never met this kid in my entire life, never knew who he was. Said something just inappropriate and uncalled for, and I turned around and asked him who he was. He started getting really aggressive. My brother stepped in. He started being, how he always is with me, just brothers, just having my back. And things started getting more higher intensity. And the kid said some aggressive stuff, reckless stuff. Austin tried to handle the problem.
Austin was always one to step up. He always was one to step up and be the person that would do the right thing. And he was doing the right thing by saying to this gentleman that you're not supposed to be in this tent. This is because they have personal items there.
A lot of stuff gets stolen just like that, just precautions and stuff. And our coaches always told us don't let, other schools, mess with our stuff. Just sit around our tent area. And we set that up for the girls track every meet we had. So it's just he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. He was it's just a tragedy what happened.
And then what happened, Austin? After your brother stepped up, what happened then?
He stepped up over there, asked him to move, got aggressive, he grabbed the bag, and then I whipped my head around, and then all of a sudden I see him running down the bleachers, grabbing his chest, just blood rushing out. He said, he got stabbed, First I froze for half a second. I didn't know what to do. And then I saw him about to fall. I went to go over there. I grabbed him. I see.
This is gut-wrenching. Hearing Austin's twin brother walk us through the moment his sibling was stabbed, it's almost too much to process. You can feel the shock still in his voice. They were just coming back from saying hello to their coaches, reminiscing about middle school, completely innocent, completely normal. And then, out of nowhere, someone they didn't even know started acting aggressively, saying inappropriate, reckless things. And Austin didn't start anything. He wasn't looking for a fight. He did what any good man does, what a good brother does. He stepped in, tried to de-escalate, tried to protect his teammates and their space like he was taught. He stood up for what was right, and for that, he got stabbed. Let that sink in, folks. A kid doing what we always say we want young men to do, to be responsible, to stand up, to take initiative, and he was murdered for it. And as far as the attacker, Anthony, he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was someone who got challenged and responded with deadly violence. That's not impulse, that's character. That's a threat walking into a school event, blending in until he explodes. And as for Hunter, Austin's brother, he had to watch the whole thing unfold in real time, watched his brother collapse, blood pouring out, tried to hold him together. He even says later in the interview, he saw his brother's soul leave his body. That's trauma no one should ever have to carry, let alone a teenager. But in our broken culture, stories like this get swept aside because the facts are inconvenient, because Austin doesn't fit the media's preferred victim profile. And again, I'm going to hammer this. This is the result of a cultural collapse where respect is weakness, confrontation turns deadly, and the people doing the right thing are the ones who pay the highest price.
WFAA has obtained new court documents revealing how Austin Metcalf was stabbed to death at a track meet in Frisco. Police say another teenager had fresh blood on his finger when they found him at Kirkendall Stadium.
The affidavit shows that when officers arrived, Karmelo Anthony told them he got into an argument with Metcalf, and when the arresting officer said he had the alleged suspect in custody, Anthony replied, "I'm not alleged, I did it."
But Anthony told officers he only acted in self-defense and asked them if Metcalf was okay.
Several witnesses paint a different picture, and Metcalf's father told Matt Howerton he is not buying the excuse.
I had a dream last night, and Austin came to me and said, "I'm okay." It gives me peace. Doesn't mean I don't hurt.
The last 24 hours, unimaginable for Austin Metcalf's father, his mother, his twin brother.
Right now, I'm really numb, and I really don't feel anything. I just have to function.
Metcalf, just 17 when he arrived at Frisco ISD's district track meet Wednesday. His final breaths taken before 11 a.m., police say, after being stabbed to death by a fellow Frisco ISD student, 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony, now charged with first-degree murder.
My world's a little shattered.
An argument over where Anthony was sitting while the meet experienced a rain delay sparked a confrontation between the teen and Metcalf. According to arrest paperwork, Anthony sitting underneath Metcalf's team tent. You could see it from the air when we flew over the crime scene. Metcalf from Memorial High, Anthony from Centennial. A witness telling police Metcalf told Anthony to move from under the team's tent because he didn't go to their school. The witness telling police Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." Investigators writing that Metcalf grabbed Anthony to tell him to move and that Anthony pulled out a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. When officers arrived, the knife was found and police say Anthony admitted to what happened, but said this to police: "He put his hands on me. I was protecting myself," even asking another officer if what happened could be considered self-defense.
What do you expect? If you're caught, the best thing you're gonna do is try to lie your way out of it.
Metcalf's father telling me self-defense is not a reasonable excuse.
The truth will come out. There were too many people that were there that saw what happened. My own son told me.
So now we have the full picture, or at least a clearer one. Court documents show that Karmelo Anthony admitted to stabbing Austin Metcalf in the chest, and when police arrested him, his response wasn't denial or confusion. It was, "I'm not alleged, I did it." That's a confession. And yet moments later, Anthony tries to spin it, starts asking officers if it could be considered self-defense. Because of course he does. That's what criminals do. They commit the act, they scramble to reframe it, hoping the system or the media will bend the facts in their favor. We also get more details that show that Austin and his teammates were under their school's tent, something they set up every meet to protect their gear and give their team a place to gather. Anthony didn't belong there. He didn't go to their school. Multiple witnesses say Austin asked him to move, and Anthony refused. Then, according to reports, Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and warned Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." That doesn't appear to be self-defense to me. That appears to be a threat. And Austin's father sees right through it. So does his brother. So do the witnesses. The truth is too loud to ignore, and it's sickening to watch this play out like some morally gray altercation. It wasn't. This was a clear, deliberate act of violence. What kind of culture are we building when a teenager can walk into a school event with a knife and feel empowered to use it over a seat dispute? What kind of values are we reinforcing when music, media, and institutions glorify aggression, frame masculinity as toxic, while encouraging young men to embrace the most degenerative behavior, treating violence like a rite of passage? Karmelo Anthony had photos of himself flashing a gun on his social media, and no one blinked. In fact, in certain circles, that earns you clout. That's the sickness we're up against, folks. A society that emboldens ego, worships provocation, and tells young men that being violent makes them powerful. And when that violence erupts in real life, when someone actually dies, our system, our institutions go limp. They call it systemic failure or a tragedy, but they never call it what it is: moral decay. This is a downstream effect of a culture that refuses to confront its own root. From hip-hop tracks celebrating murder to social media posts flexing weapons for likes, the glorification of violence is everywhere. And it's not just entertainment anymore, it's aspirational. The media will now do what it always does: soften the perpetrator, frame him as a product of his environment, blame institutions, racism, capitalism, anything to avoid holding him personally accountable for what he did, which is taking the life of another child. Meanwhile, Austin's family is left to pick up the pieces, to mourn a son who did everything right and was met with a culture that rewards everything wrong. If this country can't draw a moral line between a young man who defends his team and one who stabs him in the chest, then we are truly lost. And yet, in the midst of it all, there's a glimmer of hope. Faith still remains. In the middle of unthinkable grief, Austin's father and his family speak of peace, not from this world, but from God. That's not weakness. That's power the world can't understand. Because when everything collapses, when the culture fails you, when the media lies, when justice feels distant, faith is what holds you up. It's the only foundation that doesn't crack under pressure. The grace of God doesn't erase pain. It transforms it. It reminds us that evil doesn't get the last word. And in a society that keeps choosing chaos, we need that truth more than ever. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.